Boris Johnson is making the same mistake about the EU now as Harold Macmillan did about the European Community in the 60s, a historian suggested in a throwback report. British negotiators believe Downing Street's plan to break international law may have helped reboot the trade talks by offering Brussels a reality check about the looming danger of a no-deal scenario. The publication of the Internal Market Bill last week, under which key parts of the withdrawal agreement agreed last year would be rewritten, has enraged the EU and prompted a fresh rebellion within the Conservative Party. Brussels has set Prime Minister Boris Johnson a 3-week deadline to ditch his plans or face financial and trade sanctions, with the clear suggestion that negotiations over a future relationship will fail unless the most contentious parts of the proposed legislation are removed. However, Downing Street believes the row with the EU may ultimately prove to be a welcome disruption to the talks, which had been in deadlock throughout the summer over the most thorny issues of the government's future domestic subsidy regime and access to British waters for EU fishing fleets. In a throwback report for the London School of Economics (LSE's) blog, Professor of International History Piers Ludlow suggested Mr. Johnson is making the same mistake about the EU now as former Prime Minister Harold Macmillan did in the 60s. In 2017, Mr. Ludlow argued the EU 27 are unbending, not because they bear ill will towards the British for voting to leave, but because the nature of the EU demands internal unity. At the time, former Prime Minister Theresa May was trying to negotiate the withdrawal agreement, but, just like today, the talks were characterized by perpetual deadlock. Mr. Ludlow wrote, "Watching the stuttering progress of the Brexit negotiations as a historian of Britain and the European integration process, I can't help being struck by a depressing sense of familiarity. In far too many ways, we've been here before. And with no period or the gloom-inducing parallels more striking than with the UK's very first attempt to join the then European Economic Community (EEC) back in the early 60s.